Good evening, everyone. I'm JoAnn Birrell, your District 3 Cobb County Commissioner, and I appreciate you joining us tonight. This meeting is being recorded, and just so you know, it will be available on the Cobb County Government YouTube website for viewing after probably tomorrow sometime. Our communications director will put it up for review for anybody that was not able to attend virtually tonight. We've got a full agenda here, and we've been receiving a lot of your questions, and hopefully we will cover them. If there's anything we miss, you can email me after the meeting or tomorrow, and I'll get a response out to you. With me tonight and staff that will be presenting are Debbie Blair and Brian Johnson from the County Attorney's Office. Deborah Dance, my Planning Commissioner, is with me tonight. John Peterson and Jason Gaines are here in the room, and Jessica Gwynn, our Community Development Director, is virtual. They will be addressing questions. From DOT, Drew Ressler, our Deputy DOT Director, is here in the room. And virtually we have Abby Reddick and I believe Amy Diaz may be on virtually as well. And Michael Francis is virtual. Thank you for being here. Also, we have, Erica Parrish is in the room. I didn't see you come in. Thank you. Our Director of DOT. And from our water system, we have Dave Braden, Carl Carver virtually, and we have Tim Davidson with water and sewer in the room. We also have in the room my assistant, Kimberly Jorgensen, who many of you probably haven't met. She's relatively new. She's here and working with us, and Kimberly Limley, who's our IT director, IS director. And I think I got everybody. So with that, I'm just going to give you a brief history. The ROD 1 case, Sprayberry Crossing, was actually submitted last fall, and it was originally scheduled to be heard in September of 2020. And as all of you know, it has been continued several times, and next Tuesday, April 6th, it will be heard by the Planning Commission. So the long wait is over, and we will be hearing it, or Planning Commission will be hearing it next Tuesday, April 6th, 9 a.m. In my newsletter, there will be ways that you can call in if you want to speak, or if you want to come at 9 o'clock to second floor boardroom, meeting room at the Cobb County BOC building. You can do that as well. As you all know, with zoning, we have allotted 10 minutes to each side to speak collectively. So the presentation by the applicant for the ROD1 will be given first, and then they have 10 minutes to speak, and then the opposition will have 10 minutes as well. And if the presenter goes over his 10 minutes, and if the board, the commissioners allow that, then the opposition will get equal time. Depending on how many people sign up to speak or how many call in virtually, and to allow more time to each side, that will be decided at the meeting and has to be approved by the Planning Commission on Tuesday if that is granted, if additional time is granted. I have a feeling that it may go over and may be granted because of the complexity and intensity this case has brought. So, not negatively, I'm just saying because it's so, you know, it's been out there for a while and it's just may need more discussion than what the standard time allows. So with that, I'm going to turn it over first to the county attorney's office to discuss the ROD code and when it was adopted and the different parameters around it. So
I'm sorry. I jumped right in
no,
front.
you're fine. Thanks, Debbie.
Good evening. I am Debbie Blair with the County Attorney's Office. I'm here, as Commissioner said, to discuss the ROD code and the interaction with the comprehensive plan. There has been a lot of questions regarding the whether or not the comprehensive plan allows for apartments. And back in 2006, there was a change to the comprehensive plan that stated for this particular area that apartments would not be allowed. However, since that time, the comprehensive plan has been revised wholly two separate times, 2007 and 2017. This is a common occurrence. Every 10 years, we are required by state law to adopt a comprehensive plan for the county. The comprehensive plan serves as a guide for the zoning decisions that the VOC makes. So when the plan was revised in 07 and 17, that language was not retained in the comprehensive plan. However, even if it had been retained, that is not, apartments could still be considered for this property because, again, the comprehensive plan is only a guide for how the zoning decisions are made by the Board of Commissioners. Regarding the ROD status, at the time this application was made back last year sometime, I believe, I'm not sure of the exact date. The ROD code was an active code within our ordinances. So the developer has applied under this code. So this code will apply to this application. However, in February of this year, the Board of Commissioners approved a change in which there will no longer be any additional applications accepted under the ROD code. However, that does not affect this particular application. It will be considered under the existing code, the then existing code that last year. So anything that is in that code will be considered for this application. As well, the Board of Commissioners has sole zoning authority in our county. So they may follow the ROD code as it's written, or they may allow for variances to that code, or they may require conditions to mitigate effects to that code. Let's see. I think that any other questions I missed addressing the code? I think I addressed all the submitted questions, and I'm going to turn this over to Brian Johnson, who will address the blight tax as far as it pertains to this property. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Johnson. I'm with the Cobb County Attorney's Office. Pursuant to the questions, and here the blight tax has been levied against this property. It only applies to the actual maintenance of the property. It does not have anything to do with the use of the property. The magistrate court is the authority by which can order that blight tax apply to this property, which it is being enforced on this parcel. There is a question about setting precedent. The redevelopment overlay district code here in Cobb County specifically says that precedent is not set. The ROD only applies to the subject project property here. So any precedent set with whatever gets approved in the ultimate rezoning decision by the Board of Commissioners would only apply to this project and this parcel. So there would not be any setting a precedent to any adjacent parcels for whatever gets approved. And I believe that's all the questions. There is a question about 55 years or older for residents of the units. Whatever stipulations that the board approves shall run with this rezoning or application of this ROD. So if a stipulation specifies a certain amount of units have to be for a certain age, then that will definitely be legally binding as to this specific project. I believe that's the questions that I had for this. And this time I will turn it over to community development. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Jessica Glenn, Cobb County Community Development. This evening, we have Jason Gaines, our Planning Division Manager, as well as John Peterson, our Zoning Division Manager, here to address your questions pertaining to planning and zoning. For this particular application with RODs, that request is processed through our planning group. So Jason is going to speak specifically to the ROD and to the application at hand. And John Peterson will speak to some of the zoning related questions this evening, as well as the zoning process moving forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason Gaines.
All right, good evening, everybody, and thanks for joining us. As Jessica said, and as you heard from our county attorney's office staff, the redevelopment overlay district is area specific. It only applies to the parcels for which the applicant has submitted for, and it does not establish a precedent for land use or zoning in the immediate vicinity. The purpose of the redevelopment overlay district is to provide locations for redevelopment of commercial, office, and residential uses, which are pedestrian oriented and developed at a community or regional activity center scale and intensity. And our comprehensive plan defines some specific sites that are mapped and identified for potential use of the redevelopment overlay district. The Sprayberry Crossing site is one of such sites, and there are certain zoning districts for which the overlay can be applied. I also want to talk a little bit about what an overlay district is. It is not an actual zoning district. It is a set of standards that can be applied on top of the underlying or existing zoning, and where there could be potentially conflicts in terms of rules such as parking requirements or architectural standards or landscaping requirements, what have you. If there are potential conflicts between what the overlay district requires and what the underlying zoning requires, typically the redevelopment overlay would take the precedence. So just to be clear, it is standards that are designed to be above and beyond what the underlying zoning requires. There are a list of several compatible zoning districts, two of which are the NS Neighborhood Shopping and PSC Planned Shopping Center districts. Those two zonings are currently existing on the Sprayberry Crossing site. So by the way of that and the fact that it was specifically called out in the comprehensive plan, that's what makes this site eligible for this particular application. So let's talk a little bit about the district itself, and as well as the underlying zoning and land use. There, as you know, is an existing decades-old cemetery on site in the middle of the property, and the cemetery code does require, or the zoning code, I should say, does require a 50-foot buffer around cemetery sites. And in this instance, the Cemetery Preservation Commission has commented on the initial application, and they have stated that they're agreeable to a reduced buffer on three sides of the cemetery. They have actually agreed to a potential 35-foot buffer on the east, north, and west sides of the cemetery property. with repair or erection of a stone wall in order to help provide some screening in addition to landscaping. The south side would maintain a 50-foot buffer as the code requires. They've also agreed or requested that there will be designated visitor parking on the east side of the cemetery closest to the primary entrance to that area. So those are just a few specifics regarding the site, the land use, the zoning, and the ROD itself. So with that, I'll bring John Peterson up to talk a little bit about how. Sorry, I thought I heard somebody say. I apologize. I will bring John Peterson up to talk a little bit about how to navigate our website to view zoning applications, as well as signage for potential uses on the site. So with that, John, why don't you come on up? Thank you.
Jessica wants this.
Good evening. As Jason said, my name is John Peterson. I am the zoning division manager for Cobb County. The hearings since last year have operated both in person and virtually at the same time. So if you don't feel comfortable coming to the hearing on Tuesday, there is a virtual participation thing that you can use to call in and state to the board what your concerns are regarding this case. Each side gets 10 minutes to state their case of concerns. So you want to tell the board all your information at once. And the board's also going to hear from people who are in person also, their concerns. Currently, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners has the zoning department put all the zoning information online, and you can download that right now. It includes a complete case synopsis of everything that's in the zoning case. So you would want to go to cobbcounty.org, then go to the directory on the main web page, then the county clerk. Once you get the county clerk, hit the agendas and minutes selection on the left-hand side of your screen. And then you want to scroll down to the part of the website that says civic clerk. From the civic clerk part, you want to go to the title of the section called current and upcoming events. And right under that, you're going to see planning commission zoning hearing. You want to click on the little blue download button and download the packet. If you just download the agenda, it's just going to download a very short summary of what's going on. So you want to download the packet. And it's important to note that you want to download the packet on your desktop because it operates a lot quicker than if you just keep your the document open as a live website. So you definitely want to download the packet. There has been some questions regarding the signage of the property, and the board does have the power to make the developer change signage, bring it into compliance, and make the signage out of certain materials and colors. So the big sign that's out on Sandy Plains Road right now can come down if the Board of Commissioners stipulates it to come down. And with that, we're turn this over to the Department of Transportation for their brief presentation. Thank you. And if you need to get in contact with me, you can email me, joann.peterson@cobbcounty.org. If you have any questions about the process or anything about the case, just please email me and I'll get back with you on it tomorrow. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Drew Ressler with Cobb County Department of Transportation. And just wanted to give a brief overview of how we look at traffic studies for a development like this that's going through zoning. So when a development comes on in an area like this, where we have Sandy Plains, East Piedmont, and Post Oak Trip, which is a congested arterial network, we ask the development to complete a traffic study. So in this case, the traffic study looked at the most recent counts, and typically they would go out and they would collect existing counts to look at what the traffic conditions are doing today. With the COVID impacts and the lower traffic volumes that we've seen over the last year, that wasn't going to provide a representative information about what the traffic conditions are on those roadways. And so they utilized existing counts that we had from just prior to the Sandy Plains median project, which took counts from 2015. They looked at traffic growth rates in the area and grew those traffic numbers up to current conditions to look at what it is in 2021. They also took into account the existing conditions of the roadway. So they looked at Sandy Plains after the completion of the project to model what the current conditions or the expected traffic conditions are today with what traffic would have been without the COVID impacts to traffic, along with what the actual roadway network looks like currently. On top of that, they look at what the particulars of the development are. And so with that information, they're able to utilize the ITE trip generation, which is a manual put together based on land use to look at if it's a particular type of use, what's the expected traffic both throughout the entire day and during the peak hours that can be expected to be applied or would lay on top of the traffic that's already in the area. And so they look at that both in the current year, so looking at 2021, 2022, when it's built out, as well as 10 years down the road in 2032. And so what the traffic study shows, and we work closely with the traffic engineer for the development to make sure that it's modeled appropriately, that it matches what we expect to see the development to do to existing traffic patterns. So what the traffic study shows is a 2% increase in traffic at the signalized intersections during the peak hours. And with that growth and looking at where that traffic is coming from and where it's going to, we look at the level of service. The level of service is a grade that goes from A to F, where A would be no traffic at all. You're going free flow speeds, really not stopping for anything. And F would be complete gridlock and not moving. And we look in the traffic study to ensure what improvements need to be made, if approved, what improvements need to be made to prevent the traffic from getting any worse or significantly worse. And so we look at staying within the LOS or the level of service that is there currently. And so with this site in particular, I'll kind of take it from Post Oak Tritt access around counterclockwise to talk about the different access points and what we've looked at and what we've recommended. So starting at the driveway that would come out onto Post Oak Tritt, it's an existing full access driveway. We would recommend that to be right in and right out. And our concern there is traffic turning left from Post Oak Tritt into the site, but really more critically, traffic turning left out of the site onto Post Oak Tritt. They're right next to the signalized intersection. So that's our recommendation there. Coming over to Post Oak Tritt and Sandy Plains, the levels of service stay within the same general level of service as was there previously. Coming down to the next site driveway on Sandy Plains, this is north of Kinjack, kind of about midway between Kinjack and Post Oak Tritt. There's an existing R-cut, which is a median break that allows for a left in, but does not allow for a left out of the development. And in the traffic study, the developer has identified a need to potentially signalize that left in. And that analysis would be done after, if approved, and after full build out of the development. Coming down to Kinjack, the recommendation from the department is to not allow an offset signal where the driveway would come in outside of the existing signal at Kinjack and end up with an offset, requiring those side street, the Kinjack approach and the development approach to be split phase, where one side goes, stops, the other side goes and stops because of the impact to Sandy Plains. So we recommend that driveway be at least 100 feet from the intersection to avoid any impacts to Sandy Plains. And then that driveway would be right in, right out. And then any internal drives off of that, so turning immediately into a parking lot, that those also would be at least 100 feet from Sandy Plains to avoid any impacts and turning movements right there at the intersection. So continuing to come around Sandy Plains at East Piedmont, the levels of service stay within the thresholds and similar levels of service as pre-construction conditions. And then there are 3 site driveways along East Piedmont that operate again within the expected levels of service of the no build conditions. Just going over my notes to make sure that I address there was also a question about the internal access, and the site plan does show that the access between East Piedmont and Post Oak Tritt that exists today with the development is still in the plan that's being proposed as we understand it.
Yeah. If you did, missed it, but can you address the level of service, what it is today, and how this will impact it if it decreases or?
It does. So each intersection is modeled for its level of service in each peak hour. So for each intersection, there is an AM level of service, a PM level of service for the peak hour, and a Saturday level of service for the peak hour. And so walking through and then each of those levels of service are for the 2022 and the 2032. And so there are, you can gather from that there are 36 different levels of service at the intersections that were analyzed. And for each of them, the only intersection that fails to be above a level of service F in the 2032 build and no build condition is Sandy Plains at Post Oak Tritt. So that's been identified as needing future capacity improvements to mitigate traffic, and that would be a capacity need with and without the development. Commissioner Birrell, is that it?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you, Drew. Hello, Dave Braden or Carl, you want to address?
Yeah, this is Dave Braden. I'm Division Manager for Stormwater Management Division, which is part of the water system. There weren't any really specific stormwater questions, so I'll just give some general comments. The current site is a little over 17 acres, and it was developed really prior to any stormwater management requirements. There's no existing detention on the site itself, and the proposed development. And I think it's, let's see, let's check my notes. With the exception of the cemetery and a little bit of, that is really the only green space on the site, it's about 92% impervious coverage currently as it sits. The proposed development is proposing 69% impervious, which is under 70% allowable. And that is a significant reduction. So that's automatically going to result in a 23% reduction in runoff from the site, even before stormwater management is provided. So that's a good thing for us. The site will still be required, even though the reduced, the site will still be required to meet the current stormwater design requirements, which is going to include channel protection, water quality, and as well as detention. So that will, that in addition to the reduction in impervious coverage is going to provide some significant reduction in existing runoff from the site. The stormwater management is being proposed to be in underground systems, likely located beneath the parking areas, of which they've got many potential sites for that. So, but they're likely going to utilize the existing discharge points from the site currently. And there's two of those. One is at the, really, I guess it'd be the southeast corner of the site, right where it actually flows through the lower end, the south end of the existing storage facility that's located to the east of the development. And there's another discharge point to the north end of the storage facility, in between the storage facility and the Kids Are Kids site up on the north side. So those are the existing discharge points. The entire site discharges to the east into, it's a unnamed, truly an unnamed, at that point it's an unnamed tributary to Sewell Mill Creek. But it flows into and through the Autumn Lake subdivision and the Autumn Lake, which is right there on East People. Because of that, they will be required to do a downstream analysis for that lake, a pre and post development sediment study to make sure there's no sediment impacts to the site, as well as a hydrologic routing through that lake to verify no adverse impact to the function of that lake itself. I believe those answer all your questions, Commissioner. Did you have any others that you wanted addressed?
Just that the impervious surface for this case is maximum of 70%. And because this is more of a conceptual plan, we really won't know the actual percentage at this point, but that would be during.
I stated it, and it is the allowable is 70%, and the existing site plan that we have before us is 69%. That was provided by Kevin Moore earlier this week. I believe I copied you on that email, so you should have a record of it.
Thank you. Tim?
Hello, I'm Tim Davidson with Cobb County Water and Sewer. I'll address water and sanitary sewer. To my knowledge, there were no specific questions regarding those, so I can just talk about a couple of things that we identified during the review of the zoning case. On the water side, we were reached out to by an adjacent property. It's not involved in the redevelopment itself, but they are currently served off the master meter for the shopping center. That meter will be going away during the redevelopment. So in that case, the developer will have to provide an easement so that this property happens to be landlocked. So we'll make the developer provide an easement so that that property can have access to water. And if there's any other properties like that, we'll address them similarly. On the sewer side, a couple of issues. There is currently public sewer going through this site, which will have to be reconfigured. And this is not uncommon. There are properties outside the development area being served by that sewer. So the developer will have to maintain service to those property owners. The only other issue we identified on sewer is we take a look at, obviously this, under the current proposal, the wastewater discharge is expected to be higher than what's currently there. So we take a look at the capacity of the downstream sewer. Our engineering department did a pretty high level kind of worst case scenario looking at that capacity. And there were a couple runs downstream that need to be more closely looked at. So we'll require the developer's design engineer to do a more formalized sewer flow study to determine if anything needs to be upsized on the downstream end. And I will say, so we're not sure if they need to be upsized or not, but the sections we identified of concern are in public right of way. They're not in easements on private property in people's backyards. They're in the street. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to the Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay, so hopefully all your technical questions were answered by our experts here tonight. We got several questions that Deborah and I will be happy to address with regard to the specific proposal before us. Some folks have asked why we're allowing apartments or why we're allowing, high density. Nothing has been approved or actually nothing has been presented before us at a public hearing. This meeting tonight is a community meeting that I have requested to kind of explain the process and have staff comments before you with your questions addressed or submitted prior to the meeting and addressed at the meeting. This is not a public hearing, so we can't really give you opinions on what we think is good or bad or indifferent as far as this goes, because it's not a public hearing. There have been a lot of emails with regard to the architectural style, the number of stories, the makeup of the development, a lot of different questions regarding that. What we are looking at is the proposal, the application for this ROD that is before us. That's not to say, as our county attorney explained, we can put stipulations on this, restrict the age, things like that, and grant variances from some of the requirements of the ROD even. But that will come at the public hearing when everything is presented before us and everybody gets to speak and have their say. We have received word from different groups of petitions that are being circulated. And I'm keeping a tally of all those for and all those against of the emails or calls that I'm receiving. And I think it's important to let you know that you really need to email your not questions necessarily, but your support or opposition for this particular application to the full Planning Commission members and the full Board of Commissioners. I think it is in my district, and I will take the lead on it for discussion at the meetings, and Deborah will for District 3 Planning Commission. But everybody, there are 5 votes, so you need to email all of us on both Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners. And as you know, the Planning Commission is a recommending advisory board to the Board of Commissioners. They hear the case first. They, a lot of times, most of the time, work out the details and recommendations and clean it up a little bit, so to say, before it gets to the Board of Commissioners. They make our job a little easier. So, but it is imperative that you contact all of them, email all of them on both Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners, because it's a lot to decipher and it's a lot of decisions that we will have to make. Some of the suggestions that I've received prior to this meeting were questions like, why can't they all be senior apartments? Why can't they all be townhomes and no apartments, or condos, or even single family homes for sale? I think the community interest there is, the ownership piece. And I think that's why they, the rental part has, some concerns with a lot of the public. I have received to date, and this is just a preliminary tally because we haven't heard it at Planning Commission yet, but so far I've received 83 emails in opposition and 21 in favor. So it's imperative that you email everybody. I can't say that enough. And I appreciate your time tonight. I appreciate everybody participating. I think we had over 100 registered for this meeting tonight. So I know that there's a lot of information out there for you to decipher and review, but get your groups together because you only have 10 minutes each, maybe more, and make sure you cover all your points, both for and against, and that you don't duplicate. That's why you want to make sure you use your time and cover everything with all your speakers in the time allotted. This, did you want? No. I'm good. Okay. So, I just appreciate all the work that the community has done to, work with the community and the developers and me on this project. And I really appreciate staff and all that they have done, from getting the project or the property first with the nuisance abatement complaint that was filed several years ago, and then with the blight tax that was implemented. And this was the first case to go to magistrate court. So, you know, I know everyone is tired of looking at Sprayberry Crossing and driving through the potholes in the parking lots. And I can tell you, nobody wants this redeveloped more than me, but I have to look at everything and listen to the community and see what is the best fit for that area. So, again, if there's anything that we did not cover, or questions that you may have had that we didn't get to or didn't respond to tonight, you can always email me or any of the staff, direct it to any of the staff. And if you send it to me, I send it to the appropriate staff, but I also copy the Planning Commission, because they're going to be hearing this case first. And next Tuesday is pretty quick. So I did want to point out one thing, and I did, with the link that I sent out, the email that I sent out for this meeting, I did have a link to the documents online in Civic Clerk that John Peterson mentioned, of how to get to that. It was like an 87-page document, because this has been out there for so long and has had some revised plans and all. As late as 10 to 5 today, we just received a STIP letter and site plan from Mr. Moore, the attorney for the developers. So I guess that will be online tomorrow, John. That will be updated and put online tomorrow. So you're going to want to check to see any new documents that came online tonight. We haven't had a chance, because we were all here when it came in, preparing for this meeting. So we really haven't had a chance to review everything. But if anything changes as far as DOT comments or staff comments with regard to any changes that were made from the most recent revised site plan, that will be updated in comments as well, as soon as it's reviewed. And hopefully that will be by Friday or Monday, because county offices are closed Friday and Planning Commission is Tuesday, so it doesn't give us a lot of time, but we will do our best to at least get it online and then get the comments updated as well. So again, I appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you all for your participation and input and comments. And please email the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners with any additional comments or input that you would like to see. Thank you and have a good Easter. Bye-bye.